Hey everybody, how you doing? This is about to be a really fun video, and that is because we are doing a viewer request of compare 7mm-08 versus 308 Winchester. So 7mm-08 is a Remington cartridge, 7mm-08 Remington, and then 308 Winchester. So what's the difference? Well, guess what? There's really not a whole hill of beans difference. I'm going to show you two right here. Can you tell me from looking at them which one is 7mm-08 and which one is 308? Some of you probably can, some of you can't. This is the 308, this is the 7mm-08. So look at the case, look at the brass there, if I can hold them side by side. Same case capacity, which means the same amount of powder. They're virtually exactly the same thing, except the 308 flings a .308 diameter projectile, and the 7mm-08 flings a 7mm projectile, or a .284 projectile. .284 is skinnier than 308, so what does that mean? It's going to hold its energy longer. It's going to buck the wind a little bit better, and it's going to be a little bit flatter. So in theory, a 7mm-08 is an upgraded 308. Now there's going to be a lot of people that say, oh no, 308's the best ever, blah blah blah. But when it all comes down, a 7mm-08 is a 308 neck down to 7mm or .284. Same thing, same amount of powder, very similar speeds. We're going to look at all that data here in a second. So that's the summary. But I've done what I typically do, is I've gone and nerded out and I've selected a few factory bullets that all of you are going to be very familiar with, and we're going to talk about drop out to 1,000 yards of both of them, and we're going to talk about energy retention out to 1,000 yards, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So let's dive into some pretty pictures and some charts. You guys comment down below why you like each one and why. So first, I'm going to pop this pretty pictures up here. I've selected 5 loadings, and we're going to talk about drop, and we're going to talk about energy retention. Why does it matter? Well, if you're trying to catch some deers or hit some targets, it's easier to do it if stuff drops less, and it's easier to do it if it has more energy. So you're going to see some trends here with the 7mm and the 308. Some things are better than others at different distances, so on and so forth. So if you like one or the other, if this video's in favor of yours, you can show it to your buddy and say, mine's better because old WHOTEEWHO said ha ha ha. Anyways, let's dive into them. So the ones we're looking at in this video, you guys know I'm a Remington fan. I got it on my shirt. I got it on my hat. 360 Buckhammer. What up? Anyways, we are definitely going to be talking about some core locked in this video. So believe it or not, my 7mm-08 is a Ruger American. I've done bullet tests in pretty much everything that I own. My 7mm-08 does the best and tightest groups with this 140 grain. I have taken a deer with it. Roll that deer footage that I took with literally this ammo right here. Boom. So nobody's going to argue with that video. Dropped that deer. I think it was 135 yards, 7mm-08 with the 140 grain core lock. I've also, let's go ahead and show it. I've also taken a deer with 308. Let's show that. That guy actually ran about 20-30 yards maybe, and that was only like 75 or 80 yards away. So on video, the 7mm appeared to drop them faster, but that's just placement spine on the 7mm 08 and then in the heart with the 308. Both fantastic. It looks more dramatic on camera when they fall right there. Anyways, that's not what we're here to talk about. Well, kind of. But let's get right into the data. These are the 5 that I've selected. 2 for 7mm 08 and 3 for the 308, because 308, quite frankly, has a lot larger selection. If you go to pick up 7mm 08, sometimes it can be quite hard to find because there's not near as many factory loadings. So that's the one downside. One of the downsides, maybe. 7mm 08's generally a lot harder to find. So, 2 7mm 08 loadings, 140 grain Remington core lock, and the 140 grain Federal trophy bonded. Most of you guys are probably pretty familiar with that. Then we're doing 3 loadings for the 308 Winchester, 150 and 180 grain Remington core locks, and then the Federal trophy bonded, which we're also looking at in the 7mm 08, which in the 308 they loaded in a 165. So 308, you can also load heavier bulots, generally up to 180 grains, whereas a lot of the 7mm 08 sits in the 140 grain, and a little bit you can find in the 150. But let's get into the data. So pop up the drop chart. This is all drops in inches out to 1,000 yards. So you can see green is good, red is bad, yellow is average, or in the middle. Green meaning it drops less. So let's go right to 200 yards. The brightest green is the 140 grain Remington core lock. It has the least amount of drop. If we had all 5 of these out at the range, the Remington core locked 140 grain would have the least amount of drop at 200 yards. The one with the most drop at 200 yards is that bright red 180 grain Remington core lock. Now, remember, we're talking about drop here. We're going to talk about energy retention and energy at different yardages here in a second. But let's go on out. Just skip to 500. You guys can pause this on all this if you want to and look at every single one. 500 yards. The 7mm 08s both are staying real tight. They actually stay pretty tight all the way across the board. That Remington core locked and the Federal trophy bonded. You might sit here and say, well, that trophy bonded, it costs a lot more money, so it's probably going to do a whole lot better. Well, look at the Remington core lock across the chart. It stays virtually the same. At 600 yards even, the Remington core lock drops the same as that Federal trophy bonded. But 500, take a look. The 7mm 08s are both right at 56-inch drop, which, what is that? 4 feet is 48 inches, so 4 foot 8 inches of drop at 500 yards for the 7mm. And then you look at the 308s, it's between 5 feet and almost 6 feet of drop. So go on out to 1,000. 7mm 08 at 1,000 yards. I don't think we've done that. That would actually be a lot of fun. I need to do that. Somebody remind me. What wins at 1,000 yards? Those trophy bondeds win. Closely followed by the 7mm 08 trophy bonded wins, that is. And then closely followed by the Remington core locked 140 grain 7mm 08. And then you can see the 165 grain trophy bonded is a very close third place. It drops 407 inches, where the core locked only in 7mm 08 only drops 404. And then the 308 Remington core locks are dropping like a brick compared to the others. So when it comes to drop, we talked at the beginning, 7mm 08, 308, same case capacity. It's just the 7mm is skinnier. It's going to buck the wind. It's going to drop less. And then we see it in the numbers. So, in conclusion, 7mm 08 drops less than 308. Now, let's talk about the energy. The argument might be 308's a bigger diameter and I can get it in 180 grain, it's going to have more energy. Well, there's a balance. The case capacity is the same. The bigger or the heavier bullet, the slower speed you're going to have. So when you lose speed, you lose energy. You increase the weight, you gain energy, but when you increase the weight, you lose the speed. You guys know what I'm trying to say here. Let's look at those energy numbers. 7mm wins the drop. Which one wins the energy? In these rounds that I chose to put in this video, look, the bright green, the one with the most energy, is the 180 grain core locked at the muzzle. Now that's kind of an old school. If you talk to an old guy, he's going to say, I shoot 220 grainers out of my 30-06 and I shoot 180s out of my 308 because the heaviest is the best. Well, I found that the extreme heaviest almost never group well in my experience. And normally, anywhere I go, you can't find 220 grain 30-06. People in Alaska say, oh, we got tons of it. But around where I go, you never see 220. And you don't see 180 grain 308 as much as you do the 150. Anyways, I'm rambling on now. But if you want to say which has the most energy at the muzzle, 180 grain core locked 308 in these rounds that we're looking at. What has the most at 100 yards, which is at the furthest that a lot of people are catching deers at? Well, it's almost a tie, but the most energy for these we looked at is the 165 grain Federal Trophy Bonded. Close second place is still that 180 grain Remington core locked. Go out to 200 yards, and things pretty much stay the same from there. That 165 grain carries a lot of energy downrange compared to the other four that we're looking at. So first place, let's just stop it at 500 yards there. That's kind of the cutoff point for a lot of these, where people will say, oh, you need to have 1,000 foot-pounds of energy to take a deer. 500 yards is kind of the cutoff point for most of these. Running down there, 7mm-08, top to bottom, 140 grain Remington core locked has 1,008 foot-pounds of energy at 500 yards. 7mm-08 Federal Trophy Bond is 1,052. The 150 grain core locked, it crosses that 1,000-yard threshold, or 1,000 foot-pounds rather, threshold at 400 yards with a 1,050, only 813 foot-pounds at 500. Then going down 500, 180 grain core lock still has 1,000 at 500 yards. And then that Trophy Bonded at 500 yards still has 1,185 foot-pounds of energy. Kick it on out to 1,000. Like I said, from 500 on, the order sequence of the energy retention kind of stays the same. 150 grain core locked loses at 1,000 yards with only 303 foot-pounds. The winner is still 165 grain Federal Trophy Bonded, and you can see all the numbers there. So there we're getting into energy retention, and there's more tied in with the balance of the weight and the speed there. The winner of the energy retention is a middleweight 308 with 165 grain using that Trophy Bonded bullet. But you can see, like I said, at 500 yards, everything is almost on the same playing field. Nobody's taking deer past 500 yards. So if you want to say, well, my 308's got more energy than the 7mm-08, so not really. If you look at the first four in that selection at 500 yards, they're almost all the same, and the 150 grain core locked has less. So if 500 yards, 140 grain lighter core locked has 1,008 foot-pounds of energy, and the 150 grain Remington core locked only has that 813. So arguably, the 7mm-08 and the 308, generally speaking, have the same energy at given distances. Let's look at some pretty pictures real quick. Let's pop up all these numbers in a chart. Pictures are easier to pull out than the numbers sometimes, but I also color-coded those so it's easy too. The bright pink with the less drop is those federal trophy bonded. Then you can see the yellow and the green out there really dropping off. That's those Core-Lokt 308s. But let me call out, look at the 400-yard mark. All those lines are pretty much overlapped. Who takes deer past 400 yards? Nobody I know, myself included. So if you're wanting to argue that, well, one or the other, or the 7mm-08 drops less, it's all pretty close at 400 yards, guys, within a couple inches. So that argument really isn't there either. So let's go to the same pretty picture at energy. So we said that 308, 165 federal trophy bonded took the cake. That's that orange line at the top, carrying its energy out higher across the board. Then there's 3 right in close, and then the loser being that 150 grain Remington Core-Lokt. Energy at distance. But you can see the curve is pretty similar. There's even not a huge difference. But hey, because I have the data, I'm going to put it in here at the end of the video. I saved the mils and the MOA dials. If you are at the range and pick up any of these loadings or something very similar, I have the mils and MOA dials and drop in inches for each one of these loadings. I have the data here. I might as well share it with you. So you can freeze these and screenshot or copy it. I'm going to run through it quick. This is the 140 grain Remington Core-Lokt right here on your screen. This is the 140 grain Federal Trophy Bonded. Note, the first column is the range, second is drop in inches, then the third and fourth is the MOA and mil dials on your scope. And then third, this is the 308 150 grain Remington Core-Lokt, if you're using that. This one is the 180 grain Remington Core-Lokt. And then this chart is those 165 grain Federal Trophy Bonded. But hey guys, appreciate you watching. Quick video I get questions about all the time. Anytime somebody asks me, next time 7mm-08 or 308, I'll send them this video and they can decide for themselves. But all things considered, I'd rather have a 7mm-08. One, just because it's kind of different. Everybody and their brother has a 308. And two, it drops less. So, I like it. And I just kind of like being different. I don't like to be doing the same thing everybody else is doing. But again, we also said 7mm-08 is a lot harder to find. It didn't used to be. It used to be you could go into town and there'd be 3, 4, 5 different types. But nowadays, you guys know how it is. Things are kind of wild and crazy. But hey, appreciate y'all watching. Comment down below what you guys want to see next time. I really like doing these things and nerding out a little bit and going back and forth and talking about things. And learning myself. I couldn't spit any of this out off the top of my head. I had to go crunch the numbers and put it in there myself and build all this so I could better understand it myself. But now I know. Appreciate y'all. Best viewers on the internet. Check out all the links down below. It really helps us out when you follow us everywhere, guys. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one. WHOTEEWHO!